So the first thing I want to make sure that everybody knows is that there are some logistical difficulties with running an AP class simultaneously with a non-AP class. And so we all have to acknowledge that that is going to be like part of the program. It would be great if we could get a section of AP only. Schedule doesn't make that happen. Having said that, I think I have very, very high hopes for our chances of really good success in AP Physics this year. Last year, we had the same logistical issue, and we had the additional problem of me thinking that extension was going to be useful for the AP students. The reality was it wasn't useful for them. That was not a functional time period for them. That was like 45 minutes every other week plus like any extra time they had that I thought we were going to be able to use, and we weren't. And the thing about what happened last year is they still did really well. Those students scored higher than the state average and higher than the national average on the AP Physics 1 exam, despite the fact that our schedule prevented us from doing all the things that I had wanted to do with that group. So now that we have a different schedule, and now that I'm more aware of what the limitations are going to look like, I'm very confident that those of you who want to do well in AP Physics, that means the grade you get in my part of the course and the score you get on the AP exam, very confident that you're going to be able to do well. But I want to lay out what you're going to have to do, because some of the things I'm going to do, some of the things you're going to have to do. The content, the material that you need to know and understand, the actual physics is no different. Physics, regular physics that we're doing in class, is no different from AP Physics 1. They ask you to do the same stuff. The big difference between AP Physics and regular physics is the test. The AP test is designed to trick you. It is designed to take people who know how to solve one kind of problem and give them another kind of problem that they can't solve. It's designed to give you a question about something that you do understand. You understand the material, but in context of that question, you misapply your understanding. That's what it's designed to do. The people who build the test, I make fun of them. I'm sure they're like perfectly fine people. I refer to them as ghouls or trolls, because what I see in the test is that I see people who know what they're doing miss questions because they're not used to the way the test is built. So what that means is, in AP Physics, our primary job, in addition to just like learning the same stuff that everybody else is, our primary job is going to be to get used to taking the test. Okay, so that's going to mean a couple of things. One is you're going to need to be able to work outside of class. And I'm going to say that it's probably going to be, for most of you, somewhere around 45 minutes to an hour during the week, each evening, on average. That doesn't mean that you have to have 45 minutes every night. Like, you could work for 2 hours one night and none the next, or you could do it all on the weekend. Like, however you split it up is fine. Most of you have probably taken an AP class. This is almost certainly less than what you've had to do in your other ones, am I right? Like AP US History, you were doing more than 45 minutes to an hour a night. So the actual work that's required of you in AP Physics, the time, is less. But there's some differences. One is that the work that we have you do, so I'm going to assign it. I'm going to give you problems in AP Classroom. If you haven't used AP Classroom yet, don't worry. It's relatively easy to navigate, and I'll walk you through it. But basically, I'm going to assign you problems, but I am not going to give you points. If you need help, I'll help you. If you want me to look at your work, I'll look at your work. If you want to sit down and talk about it, I'll do that. If you want to meet outside of class, I'll do that. If you need to email me over the weekend or set up a Zoom meeting, I'll do that. But I'm not going to put points in the gradebook. So one thing that is really important is that some of you are only motivated by points. If you don't get points, you will not do it. If you know that about yourself, it's not going to be a good fit for you. If the only thing that can get you to do an assignment is the prospect of seeing your grade go up, then don't take AP Physics 1, drop it, because I'm not gonna give you points for the homework. If you don't do the homework, you will not do well on the exam. You just won't, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So that's not a threat. It's not, I'm not saying like, I'm gonna be upset. I just like, you'll be disappointed. If you aren't willing to voluntarily try to crack some problems, like on average, 45 minutes to an hour each weekday night, you won't do well on the exam. So just keep that in mind, okay? And my job is gonna be to teach you the physics stuff, which I will, and then address questions that you bring to me, which I will. We won't have time in class to go through these problems. I won't have time outside of class to go through these problems like with everybody. As we get closer to the exam, if people wanna meet outside of class and like have study sessions, practice exams, no problem, I'll do that with you. It's not my time I'm worried about, it's just I'm not gonna give you points for this work. So just make sure that you're aware of that and okay with it. The next piece that you need to understand is that for the purpose of this class, our assessments are gonna look a little bit different than they'll look for the regular physics group, okay? In the regular physics class, there are no tests. There's not gonna be any tests. It's gonna be a skill assessment. I'm gonna give you something to do in class, and then I'm gonna see how you do. You're gonna have that, okay? This is gonna happen just like regular physics. In addition to that, I'm gonna give you a practice test as well. And the practice tests are gonna feature problems that relate to the work that we're doing in class that come from the AP Ghouls themselves. It's gonna be from like previous AP exams. And so, so I have my whole Ms. Adams and I were looking through this, like I have my whole drawer of practice exams. And the thing is, like if you look through these exams, you'll see examples of the kinds of graphs that we've already been looking at. This is, like the work we're doing is AP Physics. The difference isn't that you need to learn something different. The difference is they're gonna ask you questions and they're gonna try to trick you. They're gonna try to trick you. So our job is gonna be to prepare you for the trickery of the AP exam so that you can score well on it. And so that'll come from the homework that you're given that you'll need to like talk to me about and ask me questions or talk to each other so that you can feel good about what you're doing. And it'll come from assessments that will count for your grade. Most of you are not gonna do very well on these practice exams. And that's the second big thing that's like red flag that I wanna warn you about, and it's not your fault. And you could blame me probably legitimately in some cases, but really it's not gonna be my fault either. The AP Physics exam, year after year after year, consistently has the lowest AP scores of any AP exam. It is, quote, the hardest one. It's not really the hardest one, it's just the hardest to get a good score on, if that makes any sense. And I don't know why they do that. They could make it easier to get a 5. Like, I don't know why it's harder to get a 5 on the AP Physics exam than it is on any other AP exam, but that's the way it is. So those of you who are accustomed, if you've done AP classes, if you're used to getting a 5, which is the highest score, you might get it. We had 1 5 last year. But more likely you'll get a 4 if you like hit it out of the park. And those of you who are accustomed to getting a 4, you more likely will get a 3. And that is it's not gonna look bad if you like give that to a college or a university, because everybody knows AP Physics 1 has the lowest average scores. So if you get a 4 or even a 3, they know you're a rock star and you're good. So don't worry about how it's gonna look. I worry about how it's gonna feel. If you are used to perfection, if you're used to getting 100%, if you're used to getting A's in everything, recognize you're not gonna get A's on these tests. I'm gonna score them the way the AP tests are scored. Now what I will say is that when you combine this with the skill-based assessments that you'll be taking, with the in-class work, the assignments that you're getting, you will still likely end up with the grade that you're used to getting if you actually work the way that you're used to working. If you apply yourself and you're thoughtful, you're trying to learn physics, then you can get B's on these tests and still get an A in the class. Okay? Or if you're used to B's, you might get C's on these tests and you'll still get an A in the class. The reason that I score these tests the way that the AP people do is because like one of the big things that we need to do to mentally prepare you for the AP exam is to mentally prepare you for what is possibly going to feel like failure to you. All right, so here's an example. This is a website, I didn't make this, this is a website that every year they look through AP Physics scores and they figure out like who got 5s and who got 4s and who got 3s, and they basically figure out like, what did it look like? Like when you were taking the test, what did it look like? So 3 is a passing score, means you get AP, you passed and you would get AP credit in most colleges and universities. To get a passing score on the 2022 exam, you would have needed to score 41 out of 100 points. For most of you, that feels like abject failure, but that's a passing grade. To get a 4, you'd really, you don't need that much more. I think we figured this out in the other class. I think it's 55. As soon as you hit 55, oh wait, maybe even less, 54. Yeah, 54. So if you got a 54 out of 100, that's a 4. And that is hitting it out of the park on AP Physics 1. Most people do not get more than a 4. Very, very few 5s, year after year after year. There's hardly any 5s on this exam. Just imagine. Now, some of you are like me, and you have experienced this before, but I'm guessing most of you haven't. I suspect that there are lots of people in this room who have never gotten less than a 90 on a test. So just be aware that when you take the real AP exam, which I have no control over, you're gonna feel like you're missing about half of the questions if you end up with a 4. And that might feel terrifying to you. So part of my job is to prepare you for that. Part of my job is to make sure you have enough practice exams and you see enough low scores that you're like, okay, I can do this. I can walk in there and not freak out as I start missing question after question after question. To get a 5, by the way, what did we come up with? Like a 61 or something like that. It's just, it's ridiculous. What we would normally, no, not 61, what was it, 60, it was, 71. So 70 out of 100, like most of you would be distraught if you got a 70 on a test, like that would be a really tough thing for you. But that's likely gonna be around what you get if you get a 5, which isn't super likely to begin with. So I gotta prepare you for that, I have to. And if you can work with me, if you understand, like, okay, I get it, like they're just like, everything is just like scaled differently and it's gonna feel really weird to be missing a bunch of questions, but also like you're still doing great, then that's great, you're good. If you already know that this is gonna like cause you emotional distress, if this is really gonna bother you, just don't do it. It's not worth it for you probably. I can't get around it. If I had more authority with the AP people, I would kick and scream about this because I don't think this really helps. But Miss Adams was telling me today that what was the average?
On my last physics final, the average test score was a 38%.
So it's not just AP, right? And that may very well be why they do it. It's kind of a physics thing when you get into college. They're like, well, I'm gonna ask you a bunch of stuff that you don't know. And then they grade you on it, and then when you actually get your grade, it's like much higher than you would have thought. A 38% isn't failing in college physics, and it's weird. And then I have 2 more things to say. The first is that given all of this stuff that I just talked about, if this is all good with you, if you think that what I would like, this is what I would love, and I think I'm very confident we can pull this off. What I would like is to have it be fun. I would like it to be the kind of thing where we're working together to solve these tricks. When you come to me with a question and you say, Brigar, like this question number 2, every time I do it, I get 60 kilogram meters per second, but that's wrong. The key says 48. What am I doing wrong? That's where you and I can look at it and be like, okay, let's figure it out. There's a trick here. You're good at math, you understand physics, there's a trick to this problem that we need to crack. Our goal is gonna be to come up with a book, not literally, but like figuratively, a book of tricks. And every single one of those tricks is gonna help you pick up points on the exam, okay? The rest of the work we do in class is gonna give you the tools to do physics. The work we do in AP Physics is gonna be to accumulate tricks. It's all about trickery. And if that seems like that's gonna work well for you, then like bring it on. I think it will be really fun. If you think this is gonna drive you crazy, and especially if you think like some of the choices that I'm making, like I'm not gonna give you points for this AP classroom stuff, and the practice tests are gonna be scored like AP exams. If that is gonna push you into like a state of distress or anger or frustration, it is probably not gonna be a great fit for you, okay? And in terms of the timing of this, we're in this class gonna have our first set of assessments that includes practice test stuff in October. So you've got about a month to think it over, and then you have a couple weeks to sign up for the AP exam. So you don't have to decide right now, just like go with it. And keep in mind that if you wanna do AP Physics, we're gonna start with some of this stuff next week. So over the weekend, I'm gonna post an announcement with a list of things. If you wanna do AP Physics, here's what you need to do. One of those is gonna be, go to AP Classroom, get yourself signed up, and start doing the work. The work will be assigned as we do stuff. So as we do something in the class, as I've showed you something, I will assign some problems in AP Classroom to, that will ideally like give you an opportunity to practice those skills. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video.